Good morning and welcome to Rendezvous with Rob. Let's say it's 1954 and your name is Roger Bannister. And for those of you who may not know who Roger Bannister was, he was the first human being ever in the history of the whole world to break the 4-minute mile. So it's 1954 and you've prepared all of your life for this one run that's ahead of you today. You've worked out for years preparing for this. You have conditioned your body to be perfect to run this 4-minute mile. Your nutrition has been perfect. You've studied all about how to run faster than anybody else. And there's a lot of naysayers out there, though. There's a lot of people that say that nobody could travel that fast. As a matter of fact, there are doctors that were saying that the body would explode, your blood would boil. There's no way that anybody could ever travel that fast. And here you go, you're getting ready to make this race, and you go up to your coach right before the race and you say, Coach, I really don't think I can do it. Now, what do you think his chances of winning that race or breaking the 4-minute mile would have been if that was his attitude? And actually, what that is his expectations were not in alignment. And that brings us today to another mental law as we're going through these mental laws. Today's mental law is called the law of expectations. And what the law of expectations says is that whatever we expect with confidence becomes our self-fulfilling prophecy. Or maybe to put it another way, it would be like what we get in life is not necessarily what we want, but it's what we expect. Because our expectations and the law of expectations, our expectations are powerful. They give a very invisible influence that causes us to behave in situations in a way that brings about outcomes that we are already previously anticipated. So successful people, though, they have an attitude that's confident, positive, self-expectant. They expect to be successful. They expect to be liked. They expect to be happy. They expect to win. They are seldom disappointed when it comes to things in their life. And on the other hand, unsuccessful people have an attitude of negative expectation, of cynicism, of pessimism, and it brings about outcomes exactly as they expect. To give you an illustration of this, there's a world-famous study done in the late 60s by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Rosenthal of Harvard University. And he goes out on the West Coast, and they go into the school districts, and they selected 3 teachers at the beginning of the school year and say, hey, listen, you 3 teachers are some of the top performing teachers in our whole school district. And as a matter of fact, you know, because you're our top teachers, we are going to go and select the top students who have performed the best in all of their tests. And we're going to reward you by giving you these classes filled with great students. And we expect that their standardized scores are going to increase by 20 to 30% in 1 year. And so they did that, and as a matter of fact, they monitored them through the year, and they saw that the teachers, they seemed to help the kids more. And when the kids were struggling with a concept or an idea, the teachers would feel it was their fault in teaching rather than the students' ability to learn. And all of a sudden, the end of the year rolls around, and sure enough, on the standardized scores, not only did they achieve 20 to 30% growth in their standardized scores, but they also just outscored everybody in the whole blasted school district. And at the end of the year, they brought him in, and the principal sat him down. He says, well, we've had a great year. And the teachers are all slapping themselves on the back saying, boy, that was a wonderful year teaching such wonderful, bright kids. And then the teacher said, well, you know something? This has all been a test. And all of those students that we assigned you, they weren't the brightest kids at all. They were just randomly selected from the whole pool of students in the district. And the teachers were a little bit surprised about it, and they said, well, how could they have, scored so high on their standardized tests? And then they realized, well, gosh, it's because of us. It's because we're such great teachers that we were able to take average kids, and their scores were able to jump by 20 to 30%. And then the principal had to say, well, there's another little thing I need to tell you. As a matter of fact, you three teachers are not necessarily the greatest teachers in the school district. We randomly selected you too. And so the moral of the story, or the outcome of that study, proved that expectations really shape our futures, and they design our outcomes. And so basically, how can we benefit from this today in this law of expectations? Well, the nice thing the great thing to understand is that we need to change our expectations ourselves. Our expectations of ourselves are powerful enough to overcome any negative expectations that others may have placed upon us. I mean, you've all been, like, say, at the grocery store, and you see some little kid, and and his parents look down and says, well, put that down. You could never be good at that, or you'll never do this or that or the other. They're just feeding those negative expectations. And the sad thing of that is that one of the reasons why a lot of these children are underperformers is because they've been told all their life that they're no good and they can't perform well. And so these expectations and our expectations of ourselves are powerful enough to overcome anything that anybody has ever said about us. And here we go again. It all starts in our mind. And the one thing, if you've heard some of the blogs that I've had before, that we have absolute control over in our life is how we think. And as we create these expectations for ourselves, we can create expectations that are far more powerful than anything that anybody could have ever said about us, and we can begin to change our outcomes because we now can rise higher than the expectations that everybody has had of us, and we're in complete control. And we set these expectations for ourselves. We have the ability to achieve so much more by simply expecting the best of ourselves always. And that's a very liberating thought, to know that simply by the way that we change how we expect that we will act in situations, we can control the outcomes, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And so, to use this, examine what you expect. Examine the outcomes that you've given to yourself, and maybe why don't we try to stretch maybe a little bit further and expect more from ourselves and see how much a difference that we can make, not only in our own lives, but as we change the expectations that we have of those around us, those that we love and care about, and those that maybe we don't. And we can be a positive influence for good, and we can have a greater success in life and happiness and less tension, less stress, and all of those wonderful emotions. Remember, God loves you, and so do I, in all the right ways, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.